likes a good rumor? Boy, do we have one today that right now is circulating on social media involving the Miami Dolphins. We'll talk about it on today's show. Let's get after it. You're listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast, the most listened to daily Miami Dolphins podcast on the internet.
Miami's got the Dolphins, the greatest of all.
Come on, Dolphins fans. Time to fins up.
We're in the air, we're on the ground, we're always in control. And when you say Miami, you're talking Super Bowl. Cause we're the Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins number one. Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins number one.
Hello, Miami Dolphins fans. How are you today? And thank you for listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast on this Sunday evening, April the 13th. I am your host, Mike Oliva, flying solo today as we're going to talk about that internet rumor that is specifically on Twitter that's sort of picking up some steam, picking up some legs that many fans believe might be true as the source has a knack of getting this stuff right. We're going to talk about it all on today's show. Before I get to that, if you're watching us here on YouTube, do me a favor, smash that like button right now. Just go down there and smash it. It's really appreciated. Also, please be sure you are subscribed to our YouTube channel. I also want to give a shout out to the sponsor of today's show, Caneswear. Everyone go to the website, caneswear.com. Excuse me. As they have the very best Miami Dolphins apparel on the internet. If you need a Miami Dolphins jersey, t-shirt, polo, hat, hoodie, socks, anything with the Miami Dolphins logo on it, go to the website caneswear.com. Not only is it the best Miami Dolphins apparel on the internet, it's also the most affordable Miami Dolphins apparel on the internet. So if you want to buy a special Miami Dolphins fan in your life a gift, go to caneswear.com. If you want to just treat yourself, go to caneswear.com. They also have stuff for the Miami Hurricanes, the Miami Marlins, the Miami Heat, the Florida Panthers. They also got Florida State, Florida stuff, and all the college teams in Florida. But if you're a Dolphins fan, listen to this. Go to caneswear.com for the best Dolphins gear. Also, shout out to everyone. If you haven't signed up to Dolphins Talk Extra, what are you waiting for? Go to patreon.com/Dolphins Talk. We got a private message board. We run contests where we give away autographs and bobblehead dolls and so many cool prizes. And if you are automatically signed up for Dolphins Talk Extra, you're entered in the contest. You don't have to answer a trivia question. You don't have to do anything like that. You're just automatically entered for a chance to win. And we also have interactive podcasts. We also have bonus podcasts, some about the Dolphins, some about, pro wrestling, the NBA, Major League Baseball, movies, TV, you name it, we got it. And this Friday, 8 p.m. is our interactive mock draft. It's been closed. Everyone's has been assigned their teams. If you missed out and you want to be put on a waiting list, in case someone can't make it last minute or they have to back out, email me at dolphinstalk1977@gmail.com. I'll put you on the waiting list. But if you are a Dolphins Talk Extra member, you can just tune in live Friday night at 8 p.m. and watch as 15 of us pretend to be general managers for the two teams we were assigned, and we have a little fun doing a mock draft. All right, let's get into this rumor here regarding Tyreek Hill, Jalen Ramsey, and everything going on. And everything I'm going to say on today's show is based off an internet rumor. Take it with a grain of salt. If you are one of those overly emotional Miami Dolphins fans, and this is going to trigger you, just stop listening now. No podcast should ever make you upset. We're having a little fun investigating an internet rumor. Take it for what it is, not anything more, not anything left or less. Is this rumor true? I have no earthly idea. It might be true. It might be false. Who knows? And for those of you who might have no idea what I'm talking about because you're not on Twitter or X, let me catch you up. There's a social media account on Twitter who goes by the name Slick Rick, and his account is Slick Rick Scoops. He has about 22,000 followers. He claims to be a former sports insider, and he's not a fan of the Dolphins, so he's not hoping anything happens or wishing anything happens, just throwing it out there. He doesn't give two shits about the Dolphins. He breaks a lot of stories about a lot of sports across the board. He's not just one of these, Miami Dolphins sicko fans reporting just on the Dolphins. So, and again, his track record's pretty good. Is it perfect? No, because nobody's track record is 100% imperfect. But his track record of getting stuff right is about 70% or so, I would say, maybe even a little bit better. So he has a knack of breaking news stories either a few, 1 or 2 days before, the mainstream media actually has a story, or sometimes a week or two before the mainstream media has a story and the major outlets report it. And he put out a tweet Friday night saying, breaking, big trade for the Dolphins. The Dolphins are trading away an all-pro player. So that got everyone's attention. Whoa, Miami's going to trade an all-pro player. And of course, everyone's mind races to Tyreek Hill based off the news item of last week that Tyreek Hill was involved in a domestic dispute. But he's not the only all-pro player on the Dolphins. They actually technically have 4 players who've been named all-pro. Tyreek Hill's one, Jalen Ramsey's the other. Now, the other 2, which, are Jake Bailey, who's still on the team. Why they haven't cut him yet, I don't know, because they did sign another punter, and Jason Sanders. Now, nobody expects us to trade Jason Sanders, and I'd be stunned if anyone wants Jake Bailey via trade, because Miami just signed Ryan Stonehouse, and why would you trade for Jake Bailey when Miami's probably going to cut him and open $1.9 million in cap space at some point? But technically, Miami's got 4 all-pro players. Now, look, I'm not going to spend a second here talking about Jason Sanders or Jake Bailey, and if it ends up being one of those 2 that this report's about, we're all going to sit back and have a big laugh in about a week or 2 or a month or 2, whenever this happens, and say, boy, was that show stupid Mike did back on April 13th, because he spoke about Hill and Ramsey, and it ended up being about Jake Bailey. But I don't think it is, so I'm not going to actually talk about it. Let's focus on Tyreek and Ramsey. And again, before I start, I have no idea what's going on here. So let's just start here with Tyreek. Well, let's start with this. If Miami trades either one of these guys, either Hill or Ramsey, now post June 1st because of how the contracts are structured, or anytime prior to the start of the season, we're in a full rebuild mode at that point. I've done shows here in the past week saying that Miami's sort of in this soft rebuild. They just don't want to admit it. Well, if they trade Hill or Ramsey, they're in total rebuild mode, and they're not hiding it. And in my opinion, that's okay. Because this team right now, how it's constructed, and with how little they did this offseason in free agency, is nowhere near ready to compete for anything inside the AFC East, let alone the AFC. You can make a valid argument they've been passed inside the AFC East by the Patriots. You can make a case when you rank all 16 teams in the AFC, Miami is closer to the bottom of the list than the top. So if they did make a move here, and they just they won't say it, they won't actually say the words, but their actions say they're in a full rebuild. I kind of get it. Because this roster isn't good enough. If you're just being objective about it, take off your Miami Dolphins homer glasses and just look at the roster, look at the age, look at the guys who are returning from injury, look at the quarterback and the struggles he has just to stay on the field, look at the head coach and how he's regressed from year 1 to year 2 to year 3. Once again, not hating, just stating. But let's talk about Tyreek first. Obviously, it makes sense. It's clear he doesn't want to be in Miami. It's clear he isn't going to change his ways or how he lives his life. And it's clear that Mike McDaniel is not equipped as a head coach to handle a player like Tyreek Hill. Mike McDaniel wants to be everyone's friend. He wants it to be sunshine and rainbows. And once practice is over, let's all go get ice cream and like it's a goddamn Pop Warner team. That's not life in the NFL. And guys, Tyreek Hill doesn't respect that, won't respect that. He sees it as weakness, and he will walk all over someone like Mike McDaniel as his head coach. He will literally whip out his Johnson and piss all over. He has no respect for that type of leadership, and that's why he does what he does, and he never changes. And that's what Tyreek Hill has done in Miami since he got here, and it's only gotten worse in time. And right now, he's at the point of no return. It's at the point of no return. Tyreek Hill ain't changing, and it is what it is. So if Miami is considering trading Tyreek, and we all know the financial aspects of it, I'm going to talk about it here in a second. We all know what it means or how it's, so hard to trade him because of the horrible reworking of his contract they did last August for no good reason. It makes it a challenge. But again, it's not impossible. And if this is coming down from the owner who just doesn't want this guy who's in trouble every other week and involved with the cops and a domestic dispute where maybe, this one is kind of minor. He's just through a laptop and his wife has a mark on her body, which no one knows how it got there. And there's no charges, no arrest. That's this time. What's it going to be next time? And we know it's not the first time he's had the cops called on him in his life regarding a domestic dispute. And that's not counting what happened at the marina and what happened with the plus size model in his backyard, or what happened at the Atlanta comedy show. And I could go on, and all the paternity suits, and I could go on and on and on. So, yes, as I said last week, there's a lot of reporters, a lot of bloggers, a lot of YouTubers out there focusing on salary cap, can't do it, hot seat, they have to win, they can't trade them. Those people don't understand the story. The story is, if he needs to go because the owner doesn't want him on the team anymore, they're going to have to bite the bullet on all that stuff. And it's just, what's the best way to get rid of him? And that's the story here. And I think that might be the story here. And I think that's why, if this rumor is true, I probably put a big chunk of change on it being Tyreek, because it's just become unsustainable at this point. And, here's what you also have to remember when it comes to owners. They're billionaires. They live in a world that people like you and me don't even understand how that world works. And they run in circles where they're, rubbing elbows with some of the top politicians in the world, some of the other richest people in the world. And the last thing they want when they go to these, big functions with other super rich people is, oh yeah, that's the guy who employs the insert whatever crime, or, whatever you think of Tyreek Hill. And they don't like that stigma. So this might be coming from Stephen Ross if he is moved here, whether now or post June 1st, whenever. So now I know what many of you are thinking here. Who the hell wants Tyreek Hill? He might be facing a league suspension. We know that the NFL last week, after the news broke of everything that happened with Hill, reached out and they want the 911 audio from the 911 call from the incident. And Tyreek's, like I said, got a laundry list of other problems. He just met with Roger Goodell 2 years ago after he slapped the guy in the back of the head at the marina. Nothing came of it that time, but you throw this in there, and as I've been saying, it might just be a lifetime achievement award. Tyreek, we probably should have suspended you 10 other times. And now you just threw one more thing onto the pile. Serve a 3-game suspension, serve a 1-game suspension, serve a 2-game suspension. We just can't keep tolerating this. So he might have a suspension coming, which would, of course, hurt his trade value. Then you look at the contract. There's that. Then you look at all the other past behavior that whatever team trades for him would have to put up with. Who's going to want this guy? That's the thing. Like, as great as he is on the field, is putting up with a lot and is paying him a lot, and you have to absorb a large contract. And then even if there's a team who would tolerate all that, put up with that, take on the contract, what the hell is Miami going to get in return? So I think it comes down to two things. There are going to be a team, there will be a team or two, or maybe three, who thinks Tyreek is the missing piece. And they will tolerate any possible suspension you may have coming, because it'll be a short one, if one comes. And a team with a strong infrastructure and a strong head coach, and we know what strong head coach means: Andy Reid, Sean Payton, Mike Vrabel, Nick Sirianni, teams that, don't take no bullshit, and who have a head coach who lays down the law, and there's no debate. I'm not going to be your best friend. I'm not going to go there and ask you how you're doing every day. You're an adult. You're on a team. You're making millions. Show up. This is a job. Act like it's a job. One of those types of teams with a strong head coach, they could probably know how to handle Tyreek Hill. And yeah, for Miami, the turn's not going to be ideal, but if you just need to get him off the books and just need him out of the building, you take what you take. So let's talk numbers. And I know these numbers have been talked about ad nauseum, but let's just go over them again in case you haven't heard them. To trade Tyreek Hill right now, before June 1st, if you want to pick in this draft and you want to move Tyreek between now and the end of the NFL draft, the Miami Dolphins eat $28.2 million in dead cap, and then they're going to lose another roughly $600,000 in cap space on top of that. That's a big financial loss. Now, if you want to trade Tyreek post June 1st, the money becomes easier, but you're not going to get a pick in this year's draft. You're going to get draft capital in 2026. Because if you trade them post June 1st, Miami eats $12.7 million of dead money, and they will actually get $14.9 million in cap space. So in a perfect world, you trade them post June 1st, and you start to bank and stockpile picks for the 2026 draft. It just makes the most sense. But again, people are under the assumption that Chris Spear and Mike McDaniel are on the hot seat. What do they care about the 2026 picks? They might not be here for it, which I have warned people. You keep saying they're on the hot seat. There's no proof from any of their actions they are. Because if they were on the hot seat, they would have restructured Tua's deal to open up $19 million to buy a lot of free agents. They would have restructured Zach Sealer's deal to open up cap space to buy free agents. They would have restructured the deal of Jordan Brooks to open up cap space to buy free agents. They did none of that. And then when free agency was here with the little money they had, they didn't really go out there and buy anyone of any significance. They got a couple backup safeties. They got a couple, career. They got some linebackers who really aren't guys who you want to start in the NFL. And they got one guard who's coming off an Achilles injury. And let's just cross our fingers. He's healthy by week 1. And they also re-signed Liam Eichenberg, which shows you there's no sense of urgency to win this year. So everyone keeps saying they're on the hot seat, but all their actions say that they're not. So let's just, actions speak louder than words. Don't just assume they're on the hot seat. So if you're the Dolphins, and I know there was an article, I think it was in the Miami Herald last week after everything with Hill broke down that, if Miami can get a third and a fifth for him, that's probably the best they can do. And that probably sounds about right. You're not getting a first because the guy's a lunatic. You're not getting a second because someone has to absorb that kind of a contract. And wait, I got to give you a second round pick and pay him all that money? What are you, nuts? So probably a third at best. Throw in a fifth. It's a fifth. Who cares? That's probably the best type of deal that Miami would get in return. If Miami fought for something, could they fight for just say, you know what, hold on to your fifth. We'll take a conditional third, meaning if he plays every game he's allowed to, if he's not in any more trouble, if he catches so many balls, if he catches for so many yards, your third turns into a second. They could fight for that. And the team might be okay with it because they'll be like, you know what, if he checks all those boxes and if he does all those things, yeah, sure, take your second. But if not, you're just getting a third and you can go pound salt. So I think that's probably the best type of deal for Tyreek Miami's looking at. And again, if this rumor is about him, it makes sense because who the hell wants this guy around anymore? This goes beyond football. And I just think Miami would just love to move on from him if they can. And if they can't, at the end of next year, he will be released and it opens up a ton of cap space in 2026 for the Dolphins. But yeah, so that's one of the all-pro players that might be talked about here with this rumor. Let me get to the second one, but quick before that, shout out to everyone listening at finheaven.com. Everyone go to finheaven.com, largest Miami Dolphins message board on the internet. Also, a shout out to our friends at the I Am a Miami Dolphins Fan Facebook page run by the great and talented Carlos Hernandez. If you're on Facebook, please be sure you are make sure you are part of the I Am a Miami Dolphins Fan Facebook page. And wherever you're listening to this podcast, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Podbean, iHeartRadio, Audible, Podchaser, or one of the other 100 or 200 platforms that you can find this podcast on, subscribe. You don't want to miss an episode. We'll have shows every day leading up to the draft. We'll have post shows after each night of the draft, and each night of the draft, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, we'll be live on YouTube as well with an interactive show, so you can check that out. That's for everybody. That's on the free side on our YouTube channel. All right, let's talk Ramsey. I know what you're probably saying here. Well, with Tyreek, we at least have Waddle, and Tyreek Hill's nuts, so I get why they might trade him. Why Ramsey? And again, not about 2025. If this is about Ramsey, this is a clear move that they are looking towards the future, that they are trying to essentially buy a draft pick because there's no other reason to trade Ramsey. It's just to buy a draft pick, whether in 2025 or 2026, as they are looking to stockpile picks as part of a rebuild. And with Ramsey, he's the only cornerback right now on the roster you trust. That's why so many people think they're going to draft a corner in round 1, whether it's Will Johnson out of Michigan or Jahdae Barron out of Texas with that 13th pick. It makes sense. But because right now it's Ramsey, Kader Kohou, who's, he's all right, Kader Kohou. And then you got Cam Smith, who's been a bust. Storm Duck, who is an undrafted free agent who, it's Storm Duck. I mean, he's fine. And there's really, then you got Ethan Bonner, who, again, fine. Guys who shouldn't be on the field too much here. If you don't have Ramsey either, what the hell are you doing? And that's why this one, I think, and this is the part of the rumor that's sort of picking up steam here. Most people think it might not be Tyreek just because of the contract makes it so tough. With Ramsey, the contract's a little bit more, it's not great, but it's not as bad, especially if it's post June 1st. So Ramsey, you trade him pre June 1st, it's ugly. You eat $25 million of cap space. You also lose another 8.5 of cap savings. But post June 1st, Miami only eats 6.7 million of dead cap, which really isn't that bad. And it opens up 9.9 million of cap space. That's kind of a lot. That's like a post June 1st trade here wouldn't be awful. But again, the problem is Ramsey's the only cornerback you trust. And if you don't want the 2025 season to be a total embarrassment, you're really going to need to go out there and sign a veteran or two corner who's on the market. You're going to need to draft a cornerback or two in the early rounds. You know, Ramsey's a quiet guy. He's not Hill. Ramsey's quiet. He doesn't get in trouble. So this one would be a little bit confusing. But again, if they're taking the approach, we need to get more picks this year or next, and Greer and McDaniel aren't on the hot seat per se, Ramsey's going to be 32 in October, and his best days are behind. He's still good. Don't get me wrong. He's still very good. But his best days are behind him, and he will be 32. So I kind of get it. Now, trade compensation in return. Miami only had to trade a third-round pick in Hunter Long to get Ramsey a few years ago. Fast forward a few years, Ramsey's older, makes more money. You're not getting more than a third-round pick for Ramsey. That would just common sense and logic. So I would think Miami's probably looking at a third-round pick. Again, if it's post-June 1st in 2026, could you make that a conditional third-round pick where if he plays all the games, if he gets so many interceptions, if the team makes if they make the playoffs, that some like factor all these various things in, that pick in round 3 goes to round 2. Yeah, you could make the case for that, and that might be something they push for. But yeah, he's the other all-pro player here that is being speculated about here with this internet rumor. And again, let me stress this again, if you're just sort of tuning in late, or this is a rumor, it's an internet rumor. But again, the source kind of gets this stuff right at a 65-70% clip, so you just can't brush it aside. And again, I have no idea if this rumor is true. I'm not going to put my head in the sand though and just ignore it. Oh, Slick Rick, who the hell is he? Well, he's got a lot of shit right. So it's like you have to take it with a grain of salt and take it for what it is and see where it goes. And as I've said on the podcast here in the past week, both Hill and Ramsey probably aren't going to be here next year. For Hill, it's the obvious reason. And for Ramsey, his contract after this year, it's very easy to move on from him. And then he's going to be a 32, soon to be 33-year-old guy at corner. And teams don't like to invest a lot of money in guys of that age at that position. So it is what it is. And again, do not assume Greer and McDaniel are on the hot seat. Look at their actions this offseason. Every action, don't words and hear, I think fans sometimes, or I think a lot of times, if not all the time, they go on social media, whether it's Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, Blue Sky, and it's that groupthink. And one or two or three people, whether it's a real reporter or it's like a real local journalist who covers a team, or like a national reporter who works for ESPN or Fox, or whether it's just a couple guys who have like a blog or a YouTube channel, they just say stuff over and over again. And somehow, just by saying it over and over, fans just assume it to be true. Just saying that Chris Greer and Mike McDaniel are on the hot seat over and over and over again. Well, look at what they did. As I said, if they were on the hot seat, they would have restructured Tua, opened up $19 million, and bought 2 or 3 very good free agents. If they were on the hot seat, they would have, they would have restructured the deals of Sealer and Brooks and used that money. If they were on the hot seat right now, Miami's sitting on roughly $17 million in salary cap space. Everyone thinks they have no money. Again, that's another myth that people have just fallen for on social media. They have roughly $17 million worth of cap space. They could be going out there now signing an offensive lineman. So Liam is not the starter, because if they had a game today, Liam is the starter. They could go out there right now and sign another veteran corner to put opposite Ramsey. Then if you draft Will Johnson, well, then you got cornerback depth. They could go out there and sign a lot of guys with the money they have, especially 2 one-year deals. They're not doing any of this. And then you ask yourself, why? Because they're not on the hot seat. If they were, they would, but they're not. They have some runway here. And again, you look back at Mr. Ross's history, he only fired Adam Gase not because of Adam Gase's record as head coach, because after a loss, Adam Gase yelled at him in the concourse after a game. It was week 16 or 17, I forget right now. He screamed at him. You go to work and scream at your boss and yell at him and stuff. You're going to get fired. That's why Adam Gase was fired. Flores won 10 games in 9 games. He wasn't getting fired. He was only fired because he couldn't get along with anyone, wouldn't talk to his staff, wouldn't talk to the general manager. He couldn't interact. He wasn't socially acceptable in a workplace. Otherwise, he wasn't fired because of his record. The team actually won with Flores. Look at Jeff Ireland. How many years Stephen Ross stuck by him to the point where eventually he had to move on from him. I'm telling you right now, Ross doesn't like to fire people. And, Mike McDaniel's made the playoffs twice, just missed it last year. He's not going to move on from him. Yes, if they win 3 games. But any head coach who wins 3 games or 4 games is going to get fired. That's not hot seat. That's typical NFL pressure. So for Greer and for McDaniel, they're under the typical NFL pressure, but that doesn't mean they're on the hot seat. Because if they go out there this year and win 9 games or so, and even if they miss the playoffs, or even if they win 8 games and miss the playoffs like they did last year, they're going to say, look, we sort of took a small step back. We think we got some young pieces. And Ross is going to, okay, because that's Stephen Ross. That's who he is. And so this assumption that they're on the hot seat, so they can't trade anybody. No, don't fall for groupthink on social media. It's so dangerous. Look at reality. Look at what they did, what they're doing, and what they might do. And does any of that make any sense that they're on the hot seat? The answer is no. So, yeah, once again, don't know if there's rumors true. Thought it'd be a little fun to sort of talk about it some. We'll see. I'm sure we're going to know soon enough. Here's the deal. We got 2 time frames here. Again, since neither one of these guys are being traded for a first-round pick, I think night 2 of the draft. Let me get the calendar out. So the draft, night 1's the 24th of April, night 2's the 25th. If we get through rounds 1 through 3, say like midnight or just before midnight, Friday, April 25th, Miami has not traded Hill or Ramsey, then odds are it ain't going to happen in this draft because they're not going to trade either one of them, I think, for a pick in round 4 or later. So then I think we're looking post June 1st. And so if no trade happens by like Friday, April 25th at like 11:59 p.m., it ain't happening now. Then we start looking towards post June 1st, where again, most of these trades make more sense. And then you would be stockpiling picks for 2026. And I think that's where we start to look at when Miami can realistically move on from Hill. And if they are thinking about Ramsey, that's where they can realistically move on from Ramsey. So those are the 2 next big dates to me between now and April 25th. And then probably a little bit of a pause. We'll start looking after June 1st to start to see if we hear any rumblings. And for Hill, it's between June 1st and August 31st, because August 31st, he gets a big lump sum payment as part of his deal, part of a signing bonus that goes in. And if Miami pays that, then they're not going to trade him because you're going to trade him before then to let the new team pay that. Why would you pay that and then trade him away? You have to be a freaking idiot to do that. So, yeah, that's all. That's all I want to talk about here on today's show. We'll be back with shows this week, more draft content. My final part 4 with Dante Calinelli on Tuesday. We look at corner, safeties, and also middle linebacker types. We'll break down on that show. And I know I got some other shows lined up. I have a special guest who's another draft expert who's going to join me this week as well. Josh and Aaron probably have a show later this week. We got you covered. We got you covered with lots of shows. If you're on social media on any platform, be sure to follow us at Dolphins Talk. Check out the website, DolphinsTalk.com. We got a bunch of great writers putting up a bunch of great work. Check them out there as well. Everyone have a great Sunday night. We'll talk to you again after a while. And folks, don't forget, we must put an end to highway profanity. Hey guys, Mike here from DolphinsTalk.com. Just want to thank you for watching this video today. Please be sure to like and subscribe to this video. And also just thank you in general. I know you have a lot of other podcast options out there these days, whether it's with the Miami Dolphins or about the Miami Dolphins and with non-Miami Dolphins podcast stuff like true crime, politics, NBA, Major League Baseball. We do appreciate the support you guys provide us, and we do thank you for watching our content. We appreciate it more than you'll ever know. So thank you so much. Just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. And also, don't forget to sign up for our Patreon service. Go to patreon.com/DolphinsTalk. And for just $3 a month, you will get more Miami Dolphins coverage and shows. Patreon.com/DolphinsTalk. Thank you again, and everyone have a great day.